stream this bitch. Alright, we're live.
Alrighty. From the industrial wastelands of Michigan to the fruited plains of Iowa, this is the American Greed Pack.
You are the dead. Remain exactly where you are. Make no move until you are ordered.
We burn them to ashes and then burn the ashes. That's our official motto.
Now we can see you. Clasp your hands behind your heads. Stand out in the middle of the room. Stand back to back.
Who can explain the fascination of fire? What draws us to it, whether we're young or old?
Here comes a candle to light you to bed. Here comes a chopper to chop off your head.
And welcome to the American Greed Factory podcast. This is Nathan.
This is Conlon.
We got an exciting show for you this week. As always, edge of your seat, everyone, so hold on.
We're going to bring the energy.
Yes. The energy is coming.
There's a, well, I guess it'd be a Twitch streamer, less a YouTube streamer.
Okay.
His name's Pay Money Wubby.
What's Twitch? That's a video game. Right?
Yeah, it's just, they just stream playing video games.
Okay.
That's owned by Amazon, so.
Oh, okay.
It's sort of,
Pure and raw.
it does like compete against YouTube, but in a weird way, even though it's very specific, it's just about gaming. But
Okay. That guy from Sweden's the guy who started taking video of himself playing games, right? And he's a YouTube guy.
yeah, but I'm not. He probably does Twitch. You're thinking of no, I just forgot his PewDiePie.
Yeah.
He's like, well, as far as I know, he probably still is the #1 YouTuber, but this guy's more low key. He doesn't have millions of followers. I think he has like 100,000 or something like that.
Okay.
But what I like about him is he doesn't have fake energy. He kind of has a disdain for life that I appreciate.
Oh, okay.
But he does have edited stuff on YouTube and he does it in a particular way. It's just funny, where it's just like, weirdly loud and breathy at random moments. Like it just pops in.
Yeah.
And like in unnecessary zooms, and it's always cringeworthy in some way, but an acceptable way. And a lot of people compare him to iDubbbz, which I vaguely know of his stuff. He's basically he was the internet cop.
Okay.
So a lot of what iDubbbz would do was he would follow. He'd find really popular YouTubers, people have millions of followers, and then he'd break them down and basically like this is why they're a piece of shit, or this is where they steal everything from.
Oh, okay. That's nice. That's a fun.
So at Pay Money Wubby, one of the things he did, he put out a YouTube video of him basically reviewing some app called Musical.ly.
Okay.
Which is just an app where you play a song and you can like dance and sing to it, and you upload the video to the internet.
Okay, that sounds like something I'd be into.
And like he watches a review it, and basically he's like, this is some borderline child pornography, because it's a lot of young people.
Well, it's like little kids, little girls listening to music. And,
Yes.
Okay.
And shaking their ass to the camera.
Gross. Yeah, that's sounds like something weird I was into.
Yeah. And so then he goes and finds like all the commonalities between all the videos. Like when it's like some young boy, like they always, or like I don't know, like teenager or tween, whatever. They always do like the kind of like the pussy lip thing.
Okay.
Like they drag it, and he like finds it across like 15 different videos. It's like, and he like it goes to fake vomit every time it happens. Anyways, so then there was some drama where YouTube took down his video and gave him a copyright strike for putting up that video, and then he hit the front page of Reddit talk because he put up another video like they took my, like they defunded it or whatever that, and then took my video away and all that stuff and gave me a copyright strike. Because I think if your channel gets like 3 copyright strikes, like you can be like shut down for good. Like you'd have to like create a new channel. And it.
Said, oh, that's wonderful.
But after you hit Reddit, like within like after you hit the top spot in Reddit, like 6 hours later, like it was back up and like nothing happened. His copyright strike was taken away and all that stuff. So somebody was catching some shit and everyone just backed out of the situation.
Now, who owns Reddit? Is that its own thing?
I think it's its own thing, but somebody probably owns it.
Yeah.
Or else they're still trying to build up for some venture capitalist to buy it so then they can all leave with money before it gets ruined by... Well, I mean, I guess in some people's eyes, Reddit is already ruined, but...
I remember like 5 years ago, Reddit was kind of wild. There's some wild shit you can see on there. It's a little more tame now. Not much.
No, you can still see all that wild shit. It's just that it's better gated.
Yeah.
Like those stuff that'll pop up and that'll say like not safe for work and all that stuff. Like they'll make sure what you're clicking on at work while you're not doing your job won't get you fired.
Looking over your cubicle or whatever.
I remember when Reddit used to just be just purely picture memes. Like that was like the whole front page was just memes and like not videos or anything like that, not links, just like straight up memes. Like Bad Luck Brian, I can't remember, was it Success Baby, stuff like that. Like that was just like all Reddit was, like, you know, a few years ago.
I read a lot of the weird stories and a lot of the real amateur fiction, and then the stuff like we've talked about before, like unlikely stories. You know, I caught my wife fucking some stranger and I murdered his family and showed him who's, you know, whatever those like championship asshole stories are. It's like, well, that didn't happen. You don't do that and not go to jail. And then a lot of model making stuff.
Yeah, I've been looking at some of the Machine and Krieger stuff, or what do they call it, Maka or Make?
Mach 3.
Okay.
Mach 3K. Yeah, that's there's some good model making. There's some cool model making forums, and because some people put that like that caveat on there, like critique wanted, but real critique, not you're a faggot or something. People to say something that's actually constructive, and some of those are pretty cool. Like, yeah, I can, because I don't critique things like that well, but when I see other people do it, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I see what he's saying there. But yeah, there's some. But no, I remember like what was the Reddit forums? I went to a lot of political Reddit forums just to see what people were saying, and like this was like 5 years ago. Like when it was, like I said, it was raw. I was like, wow, another human being actually said that. Okay, that's amazing. And with no irony at all, they're saying that. But a lot of that stuff got taken down because a lot of it just became. What was the last big Reddit thing I saw where it's like I couldn't believe? Oh, when the Charlottesville thing happened, or was happening.
Yeah, right. Yeah, after that, I think everybody took an effort to strike neo-Nazism from the internet.
yeah, because there was a few forums in there that you could go to. And it's like, oh, stuff's still alive and well.
Now you got to go to the dark web for that. That and Alex Jones.
Yeah. Well, I kind of lost interest with all that stuff. I mean, I was never interested in it, but I always wanted to hear, like, what are the crazy people saying? Oh, the same stuff they've always said. There's a few of them.
You want to know what their unfiltered thought is, not like what they. Oh, this is what I tell normal people. Like, no, I want to know what you tell your friends behind closed doors.
Yeah, I want to hear the secret discussions that you're publishing on a public data network that you don't think you're going to get fired for. I want to hear those.
I want to hear the conversation you have where you have to look both ways and make sure the black guy isn't around.
Yeah. Yeah, you know how the good conversation starts when somebody's like, that's when you know something great's about to be said. And then what was the other thing? Oh, Flat Earth. That was a fun thing to research on Reddit. But that just got overwhelmed with pranksters and hucksters, and like I really want to hear the raw, unfiltered idiocy of that. Not the people like, oh yeah, and I heard this, and they'll start some thread or something, and then you figure out, oh they're just screwing with everyone. They're just trying to wind the dummies up. Yeah, some of that stuff's still around, but I found a certain humorous. It was a humorous way to spend your time, I guess. Right before bed, reading through that, it's like, well, we still have a country full of crazy people. What was the weird? Oh, there was a whole Reddit. It was like it was all right wing crazy stuff, but a lot of it started to focus because you know how those Reddit threads just go, and then whatever the original question was, it becomes something totally random and different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was making the Purge a reality, and who needs to die and how, and like elaborate plans and you know, some graph charts, and that was that got taken down, but that was a fun one for a while. It's like, oh, these people are really investing a lot of time in this. It's like cities like New York would be terrible because they're really old cities for America, and there's all this strategic thinking about, you know, it's hard to kill people in this area, but much easier in the suburbs because you got more space. It's like, oh, you guys just been thinking about this for years, huh?
Well, they got that Purge TV show now.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's a limited series, so it's like a mini series, it's like 10-episode mini series on USA.
Oh, okay.
And the movie just came out like this summer, so.
Last Purge movie I watched was like The Purge. It's the second one.
Oh.
Cop who's trying to kill the guy who killed his kid.
Yeah, I think is that like Purge Anarchy, and then there's like Purge Election Day, and then there's like Purge, whatever the latest one is, I can't remember. Or the first Purge, I think, is the new one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've never seen anything past 2.
I just saw the first one.
Yeah, the first one was probably the most interesting.
Yeah.
The second one was like, let's show what happens in the rest of the country or a large city when this happens, and then I don't know. I never watched the third one or the fourth one. So. They're not that good.
No.
I thought was interesting was that people had devoted like, you know, all kinds of time and planning and like couldn't wait for this to happen. It's like, oh, okay.
I think the Purge was kind of a fresh Saw-like movie. It's like, yeah, this is our new Saw movie. It's like, well, this is interesting and absurd.
Stupid. It encompasses like all the worst stuff in America. It's like, yeah, let's bring it all into one movie.
But then the Saw writer, he went and made a new movie called Upgrade, which I've seen recently.
Okay. Explain the premise of that.
Okay, it's basically the it is the future. It's not basically the future. Sort of cyberpunkish, but not too elaborately cyberpunk. Like a lot of self-driving cars, and like the main character is a guy who he fixes old cars and actually drives them, and like, you know, manual transmissions and stuff like that.
Okay.
And like people don't do that anymore. So he makes a car. I think it's a Firebird. Yeah, I think he puts together a Firebird for some rich guy, and then delivers it to his house. And he's like some tech billionaire who's working on artificial intelligence. And his wife goes along with him, and she works for another tech firm, and they make a lot of like limbs and stuff for soldiers or whatever.
Okay.
And there's like, there's some mentioned like war that goes on that all these soldiers are coming back from, but they don't delve into it. Just like, yeah. But basically the new limbs they get are better than the ones they had before.
Okay.
And they can hide guns in them and stuff like that.
Which is important.
Yeah. So he delivers the car, and then on their way back, the car just like gets hijacked by something, and it gets wrecked. And then these guys kill his wife and like shoot him in the neck and paralyze him.
Okay.
And then for like the next 10 minutes they kind of just go through. I can't remember how much time passes, like a year passes or whatever, and nobody's caught his wife's murderer, and eventually the tech billionaire guy offers him like a solution. Is like, I can give you this thing. It'll work to bring your body back to life. It'll work together with your body and your mind. It's called STEM. And so he agrees to that, and they put it together. But he still has to like pretend that he's paralyzed, even though that he can like walk around. He's like signs a non-disclosure agreement to not say that he got this procedure, because apparently it's not allowed yet.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, then he can start walking around again, and then there's a voice in his head. It's called it's the computer voice in his head. It's called STEM, so that's how he talks to it. But now he goes from paralyzed, and now he's just basically a superhero. Even though he doesn't really have any like metal implants or anything like that. It's just that the computer is so hyper aware it can react to things at an instant. So the fight scenes are really interesting, because it's kind of this thing where he because there's like the first fight he's trying to fight the guy and he's getting his ass kicked, and then like Stem's like talking to him in his head. It was like, would you like me to take over? He's like, okay. He's like, he's getting like choked out. He's like, take over, Stem. And that's where he just starts doing like kung fu moves and like beats the shit out of the guy and like practically rips his head off. Like he like basically takes two knives and splits his head like through the mouth.
Oh, okay. This is an R-rated movie.
Oh yeah. But I think one of those interesting things about how the fights are done is like I read this in the trivia, is that so like Stem has control of his body, like everything that he was paralyzed basically. So like he can only move his neck. So like when he's fighting, like he doesn't know how to fight, so his head is kind of like doing weird movements. He's like, this is interesting, but his body is doing like all kung fu moves.
His body are separate things.
Yes.
He's just like watching, like, wow, that's crazy. Trying to duck punches or anything.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's weird.
There's kind of a weird where they kind of latch the camera to things, and like as things move around, the camera is like basically like latched to that point. So it has kind of a weird opposite, like they're doing it like the opposite of shaky cam. Like it has all this kind of, it's like it could have been terrible, but like it's done pretty well in this movie, and I'd never really seen it like kind of implemented as a style across a movie before, but they do it pretty well here. A lot of times, like they lock it to his head and like kind of track his movement with his head as his body's, kicking things.
Oh, this sort of video gaming in a way.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
But it's pretty interesting because it's a really cool movie. It's like a long episode of like an anthology series episode. Like it's almost like a long dark. What's that show called?
Dark Mirror.
Yeah, Dark Mirror. It's like a long Dark Mirror episode. So it's not like a whole lot of character development. You get a peek at the world, but it was like a $5 million movie, which like I would have thought was way more than that. But I guess there's no notable actors in this movie, so maybe I kept the cost down. But it is from the writer of Saw, so Lin-Wanol, and then like his buddy is what's his name? He directed all the Saw movies, Conjure movies, the latest Fast and Furious movie, the new Aquaman movie.
Lee or whatever.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
But yeah, I think he did a really good job. I recommend this movie highly. It's fairly short and it's just really cool. Kind of, I want to say like it's a B movie, but I don't mean that disparagingly. It's just kind of like it's one of those movies where it's just like really well done, kind of John Carpenter-esque kind of sci-fi movie.
So it's not $100 million movie, but
no.
Cool movie. Yeah.
Yeah. I really like the ideas. Performances are pretty good for actors you have never seen before.
Canadians running around.
Yeah, pretty much a bunch of Canadians. Actually, I think it's a lot of Australians. I think think Lin Winall is Australian or something like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, a bunch of so it sounds like a bunch of Australian soap opera actors.
Yeah. Doing English accents. I don't know. I couldn't pick on. I would just assume everyone's Canadian sounding American, but yeah, it's supposed to take place in like L.A. or something like that because that's where you put every cyberpunk. Thing at.
And then in LA of the future, everyone has a weird accent.
Yeah.
Language has changed.
But yeah, I don't want to spoil that too much, but yeah, it's so. Yeah, well, Upgrade, watch it.
Upgrade, check it out.
Yeah, because I saw it was $5 million. Like, oh yeah, because then I like kind of like look back and it's like, oh yeah, there's really. You watch the trailer and you kind of expect it to be wall-to-wall action, but there's really like maybe like 5 action scenes, but it's just done in a style that's new.
Yeah, it's just something unique. It's a unique voice. And probably like, yeah, it's like, where are we heading? Oh yeah, this is probably closer to reality. I don't know though. According to Westworld, you can never integrate human consciousness with machine consciousness because we're too simple.
Okay, so STEM has a male computer voice, but there's like the computer house voice, which is female, and that's the first voice you hear in the movie, because it's like that voice is like reading off the opening credits.
Oh, okay.
It's like a Blumhouse production, like it's stuff like that.
Oh, that's strange.
Yeah.
Reading the credits. Let's see. We're talking about movies and money. They're contemplating a Kirkless Star Trek installment.
Oh yeah, well yeah, because I heard something like Chris Pine is gonna leave or something.
Well, they're not. They want him, and there's other people, but because the last movie wasn't hugely successful, they want massive pay cuts. And he's like, "No, fuck it. I'm working on like 10 different things. I don't do your Star Trek movie." I heard it was.
I'm not doing a charity Star Trek movie.
Yeah, and then I read other things about it, like it's actually a multi-movie deal, and they want to basically cut their pay down, or cut his pay down to the point he's doing 2 movies for what he used to do 1 for. And it's like, no, fuck that. I'm not doing that. But the Carl Urban swears it's going to be all right. It's like, no, we're going to have the gang back together. So I don't know. It's got a lot of Star Trek stuff coming, because then there's that
Picard one, yeah.
Which who knows where that's going to show up.
Well, I imagine it'll probably be on the CBS network or All Access.
I just have to read about it.
Well, did you see the trailer? Well, I guess you didn't watch the first season, but you've absorbed enough of it to just know it. But did you see the trailer for the second season?
Oh, where they have the Lenny Kravitz song playing.
Yeah.
Captain Pike is the.
Well, it just seemed like Discovery and Orville just like swapped like moods.
I heard some weird shit, like Paramount is actually talking to him now about like, hey, would you like to write and direct some shows for us? Like, because the Orville has this weird popularity.
Yeah.
Like, well, this is the next generation. This is the Star Trek we want, but we're not getting.
Yeah.
Yet, and they've actually talked to him like, we can't believe this works, but because I mean, all the big sci-fi franchises are in the fucking toilet right now, so it's I mean, they're generating money, but they're not. I don't know how you'd say it.
They're large productions, and their year-to-year growth is very small usually.
Yes, except for the superhero shit, but even that's starting to taper and tingle. That's overstayed its welcome by about 5 years. So
I mean, fucking got the Expanse. Like, Sci-Fi wasn't even paying for the show. They're like, yeah, we're not even gonna bother to put on the air anymore. It's like one of the best shows on television.
Yeah, it's one of the best science fiction shows ever. Let's get rid of that. But yeah, that's.
Did you get through the latest season of The Expanse?
Yeah.
I was disappointed that they just crammed all of Abaddon's Gate into like 8 episodes, but I understood why they had, and I could see how they cut a lot of stuff, because there's was it Michio Paw and Bull were like two separate characters, and they basically combined it into was it Drummond or who's what's her name?
No. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Because I always confuse her. Like, there's Bobby Drummer, and then fucking what do they call her? Because like she doesn't have a character name till like this season, and it's like and then because in the last book she's like the president of like the United or like Earth or whatever, Earth Realm or whatever. But something with a Kamina something. Drummond, I want to say Drummond, but I can't
He
remember.
was the right-hand guy for, yeah. But yeah, that was. No, I did a good job with cramming all that. It wasn't bad. I mean, by the third of the last episode, it's like, boy, they're really stuffing a lot of shit in here.
Yeah,
I get that.
Well, I was like when they basically, because there was like a back and forth assault stuff that happened in that book where it's like, yeah, you take all that out because that's not necessary, and you it'd be too expensive, and they kind of just have it be that one scene where they're in like the computer and they're shooting back and forth at each other.
Yeah.
And then also it made more sense in the book to have Bobby around, like for like series continuity, because it was kind of weird, the Martians get involved and like, oh, I guess we're just getting rid of this character because she isn't mentioned again. Then she shows up again. It's like, we should just have her in this. We could rewrite this. We'll just have her here too.
Yeah, she doesn't have that weird hiatus period where she's like, I'm working with the veterans on Mars. Like, no, that never. They just hacked that out and like, here we go.
What? Well, yeah, I guess, yeah. Okay, I guess there was sort of a gap with Gods of Risk, but she's just kind of a background character in that.
Yeah,
because she's like, she's not in the Martian military anymore. It's like, you were a traitor. You can go fuck yourself. And she just lifting weights at home, unemployed, or living with her family.
Yeah. Well, and Mars is slowly being evacuated too because everyone's like, fuck this terraforming.
Yeah.
Why terraform when you can just find ready-made planets? Like, yeah, let's go to the fucking killer leech planet, and those look like. I think I'd stick with terraforming Mars.
But yeah, they did. I guess I didn't. How they describe the gate in the book wasn't exactly, or it's. I feel like I don't know. I always imagined like a weird glowing Deep Space Nine that was giant.
Yeah.
Like that's how I felt like they described it in the book. Here was just kind of a ring, like a halo ring.
Space, yeah, or something like that. I was thinking Stargate. It's like, oh, you line the constellations up and it takes you where you want to go.
But then once you get inside it, it's like a whole different thing, which I thought that was a neat idea. Where it's like once you get past it, there's just infinite space to all these other worlds.
Yep. One note, I think The Expanse the TV show one thing I like way more in the book than in the TV show is in the or in the book, the alien shit or whatever it is, especially, I mean, the proto-molecule is just frightening. It's well done in both things. But in the books, I see the alien technology is way more mysterious and frightening.
Yeah.
In the TV, because in the TV series, it's like, oh, it's mysterious, but let's work this out. But in the book, it is a deep mystery that no one fucking understands, and it can randomly kill you, and everything about it so far has been bad. And it basically throws all the laws of physics up in the air, even though our people are still operating physics. But apparently, like general relativity and all that is somehow bullshit. But we don't understand this technology at all. But in the TV series, it seems like the scientists and stuff have like, we've worked this shit out, where in the book it seems a lot more like, let's see what happens, and it's always something horrible. So
I also kind of missed the newscaster. I mean, she was there, but like I always remember in the book they always like they have like the newscast. It's like was it Radio Free Slow Zone or what?
Yeah.
And it's like a constant phrase throughout. Like, you're listening to Radio Free Slow Zone. And then it'll give you updates on what the fuck's going on.
Yeah. Which is a good narrative thing in a book. Or you can see how people are misinterpreting what things are going on.
Yeah.
Well, really what's happening.
But yeah, my favorite. Yeah, my favorite. One of the parts that made that book is probably my favorite in the series. Just the whole idea of like, hey, what if you're going to speed and then physics just stops you suddenly? But it just stops the ships, but everybody inside of it keeps going forward.
Like a car crash.
Oh, and the horrors that would happen. Yeah, I don't think they really encapsulated the horrors described in the book. Like it was basically Dead Space, where it's just limbs and blood everywhere.
Guts and no gravity, shit just floating around.
Just
like,
yeah.
Eyeballs, fuck.
Yeah, yeah. It's just like the beginning of Undiscovered Country, but like a million times more.
Yeah, I mean, I like they hit the high points on the TV show pretty good, but yeah, it's some of the stuff. It's like you're watching it like, oh, that doesn't grab me, but then you realize, oh, they're constrained by a TV budget, and they're doing a pretty good job with what they're working with. So
I thought that
super complicated story.
Yeah, well, I thought they did a really good job of kind of prefacing the priest character. What's her name? I can't remember. But because in the first half,
that's the problem with the Expanse. It's like Game of Thrones. It's like so many people come and go, and it's like shit.
Well, it made sense because it's like she wasn't in, the last half of Caliban's war, but they brought her in to kind of, prepare everybody for her character later on, and I thought they did a really good job with that. And her character is, the actress does probably a better job than what was written in the book, or even for the show. She's effective at what she does.
Yeah, this show does a lot of things right. That's why when I heard it was canceled, I was like, but then you explained like it was basically just a distribution thing, and Sci-Fi didn't really have any control, and they just had to make money on what they paid to get it. And it's like, oh, okay, it doesn't really do it because people who see that aren't going to stick around for, Sharknado 10 or whatever, or the Sci-Fi shows some weird shit.
Yeah, well, I mean, it looks like they basically canceled half their shows, but they got like that. What was it, Night Flyers?
Yeah.
They got that coming up, and that's about the only thing I can think of that seems interesting. Well, I guess, and Happy's, they got a second season of Happy coming around.
Oh, they did? Okay, that was so off the wall. I watched a couple episodes of that. It wasn't really to my taste. It was funny, but it wasn't like I'm going to invest a lot of time watching this.
Yeah, no, I don't think it was as funny as I was expecting it to be because, watch anything with Patton Oswalt in it. It's like, oh, Patton Oswalt is a blue magical talking unicorn that only this one guy can see. It's like, sign me up. It's fucking weird. Which I like.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll just take weirdness over quality if I can get it.
Yeah.
It's like, this is original. It's like, well, it's just original because it's weird. And to see Christopher Maloney, like, he's kind of really renowned actor doing this stupid shit.
Right. Night Flyers TV show start?
I want to say in the fall.
Oh, okay.
I want to say like in September or October or something. Makes sense for October.
Yeah. Yeah, so it'll run on Sci-Fi, and then it'll go to Netflix. That's weird.
Huh. Okay.
Netflix produced it.
Oh, that's weird. Okay.
So yeah, it's gonna run on Sci-Fi, and then all replay rights go to. Oh yeah, then Netflix gets all the replay rights, which is kind of weird. I don't see when it's coming out though.
I imagine that they're just gonna do. It's probably a limited series, right? They're not doing a second season or the continuing story of the Night Flyer.
Well, somebody said they thought it was gonna be an anthology of that kind of kind of like George R.R. Martin sci-fi, which is all Night Flyers is. The whole book is a series of short stories.
Huh. Okay.
I don't think they're going to do that.
No, they already canceled their other anthology series.
Which one was that?
Oh wait, I'm not sure. They had one. Well, they had that one that was based on heavy metal, but it was called whatever it's called in Germany or whatever.
Oh, French.
Oh yeah.
Metal Erlon.
So I can't remember. No, but it wasn't heavy metal, but it was based on what heavy metal is based on.
Weird European TV show.
And there was one called Blood Drive, but I thought that was a part of their anthology series, but I think that's just a series unto itself, which was it's kind of a Mad Max world, but where cars run on blood.
Nice. No metaphors there.
So you're feeding, people to cars to keep going.
That's cool. Speaking of which, I was listening to this podcast the other day, and I found, speaking of Mad Max, I found all the pre-story shit that never made it into the movie that kind of explained the world of the first 3 movies.
Yeah.
And the guys were sort of talking about it, and then I just went and looked it up on my own, and I read something like 27 pages. But I didn't realize that there was no nuclear war in Mad Max, because that was just the collapse of civilization. It wasn't quite gone yet. Mad Max, no nuclear war. The Road Warrior, no nuclear war. Between the Road Warrior and Thunderdome, that's when the nuclear war happened.
Huh.
And then there wasn't much about Fury Road. But it's this elaborate stuff about basically the Iranians tried to spread, because the movie Mad Max was made in 1979, and then the movie sort of captured the times. It was like because the Iranians tried to spread their revolution around the Middle East, and so they took over Saudi Arabia, and it essentially ended the world's oil supply. But it started with the Iranians after they took over Iran, trying to, like the Ayatollah, trying to spread that brand of revolutionary stuff all around the Middle East. And then global economies collapsed because oil went up to preposterous prices, and then people started trading gold for oil because no one would take any currency, and then the price of gold skyrocketed. And it's this real elaborate thing that explained why civilization was in the state it is, and what the MFP was, and what actual dates it happened on. Because Mad Max was supposed to be set in like 1990, and because the MFP was the last law enforcement thing left in Australia.
Huh.
That was it. Everything else there was a government, but it wasn't like, no one was getting food or anything, or the fuel and everything was limited, and it was basically out of control. But then in Mad Max, I didn't realize there had been no nuclear war yet. But then between Mad Max and Thunderdome, which there was supposed to be another movie, that would be about that, which wiped out all the cities. But anyway, it's like when I found all that stuff about Alien, like what Ridley Scott wrote is like, this is the world of Alien. And it was a lot of weird shit.
Here's all the interesting stuff we can't film because it'd be too boring.
Yeah.
But now you can make a 10-episode TV show about it. It would be awesome.
So we got some guys were talking about that. It's like, I didn't know there was a lot of pre-story. Because there was even a novelization offshoot that never happened, never got published, but there's still a book floating around. It was called The Life and Times of Mad Max Rockatansky or something. Yeah. But that never got published, I guess. I thought it did, but I guess it didn't. So that was, I didn't realize all the pre-story that went into Mad Max. Because you watch that movie, the first one and the second, really all of them, it's a fairly simple story. Like just this weird world, psychotic dune buggies, and people wearing hockey masks and weird shit and killing each other, and it's like that's the story. But I didn't know there was all this groundwork and this what would you say, kind of
thorough backstory that isn't explored at all during the movie.
Really kind of interestingly fleshed out backstory that definitely reflected the times, late 70s through the 80s. So that was because
I'm sure like you do stuff like that, and you give that across like all the departments when you're making the movie, so that everybody makes a choice based on like the information. Okay, well, like on this kind of history, like how would this person come across this thing, and what does that mean to them? But then it's just never explained. It's just a guy with a hockey mask.
yeah, it's just doing your homework. Yeah, so that was interesting though to read about that. And to find out that stuff. Like I said, not that it would be weird just to include all this exposition in a film, but it's kind of like, oh, that world makes more sense.
Yeah.
Because everyone always thought here it was almost seen as, especially after the first one, it's like, oh, it's a post-apocalyptic adventure story. And it's like, well, really the apocalypse is ongoing and improving as it moves through the story. It's not everything didn't happen in a flash of light, and now we're driving dune buggies through the desert. There's a timeline to the collapse of civilization, and nuclear weapons are the end of it, not the beginning of it. So, which is different than what
there's like a 30-second flash in the beginning of the Road Warrior that explains what happens. It doesn't go in that much detail. Just like world collapse, oil crisis.
Yeah. But so yeah, kind of cool if you're researching your backstories.
Yeah, I think Mad Max would make a pretty good like novel series.
Yeah.
But maybe George Miller doesn't want it. Maybe he has the rights to that. It's like, I don't want to churn out a
Well, he was going to make another Road Warrior movie, but then everyone got all entangled in who's getting paid and what.
Well, apparently, like he cut like $10 million out of the movie, and then because of that, they owed him like $20 million.
Okay.
But they decided they somehow considered that he failed to meet that that requirement.
Yeah, because they're shitheads and don't like to make money.
It's like how every Harry Potter movie like doesn't make money because then they have to pay people because they meet because all those contracts have stipulations that if you meet some sort of goal, you get extra money. But because of how Hollywood accounting works, no movie ever makes any money.
Yeah, that's always interesting.
It's like, the profit of this movie is funding one of our other failures, so it all breaks even.
Yeah. Let me sit down and tell you why this isn't going to work. It's like, no, wait a minute. You gave me $190 million to make a movie. I came in $20 million under that, and I'm supposed to get a bonus. Well, that's a simplistic way of looking at it. I see I'm going to get fucked. That is such a rotten business. I mean, all businesses are rotten. I guess this is the one that people like, oh, I know that guy. I want to hear his stories. Like, nobody cares if the fucking steam fitters union gets fucked out of something. Fuck those guys. Those guys in yellow vests, I hate them. But yeah, the actors, it's always, it's never the people producing the content or writing the content or acting the content. It's always the people funding it. That's where the devil comes out.
Well, that's the weird thing. Is like a lot of funding for movies like doesn't necessarily come directly from the studio. Like they're just the middlemen.
Yeah.
Like the studio is like they find money people and they, and then they get their creative together, and then they get this movie made, and then all hell breaks loose after that. All the middlemen. I also heard something weird, like all the money that the music industry is making right now, like almost something like 95% of it just goes to middlemen, like managing like tape libraries and shit like that, and then like 5% of it goes to the artists.
That's why music sucks. It used to be number one requirement of being in music was you had to be able to play a musical instrument or sing, sometimes both.
Have a talent that you can do live.
Yeah, and have something that you can actually do in front of an audience. And what else was there? Yeah, there was a lot of like crazy things. Like the Beatles, they could all play musical instruments. I think maybe Ringo wasn't the best drummer. Like they didn't even have to be the best.
Oh yeah, that's what they said, that Ringo wasn't even the best drummer in the Beatles, like, because
Yeah.
fucking Paul McCartney was a better drummer.
Yeah, Paul McCartney. But yeah, that's just like crazy old school stuff. Like even crazy lunatics like who's the guy with the TV show, Ozzy Osbourne. It's like, oh yeah, he could sing, play musical instruments, all that shit. Nowadays, it's just like if you have some asshole personality, an ego as big as the fucking universe, and really no discernible talent, or you maybe coined a phrase once in a humorous way. Oh, you can stretch that out into like Pink Floyd money. But it's all terrible. It doesn't matter. It's great. It's still around, but it's like it's just horrible.
Well, there's still like a ton of great music out there. It's just like none of it is popular.
Yeah.
Nothing is. You're not gonna accidentally hear a good song walking through the mall. It's all gonna be fucking terrible pop music.
Yeah.
And some of that pop music is good. I don't know. Bruno Mars does good stuff. I don't really listen to his stuff, but it's like, yeah, that's fine.
Not all of it's terrible, but when you listen to like a lot of the prog rock shit that I'm into from the 70s, and then you grow up in the 90s when music was amazing.
Yeah.
You're listening from one amazing musical era, I consider a musical era, the prog rock era, and then you go into the 90s alternatives like, oh, this is fucking cool. And then you look at the last 20 years of music and you're like, what the fuck happened? I mean, I know there's still good stuff out there, but
yeah, like
alternative music now is like, I'm thinking like Nine Inch Nails, that's alternative, or some Helmet or something. But now it's like something called Imagine Dragons. And,
yeah.
AWOL
Nation.
Yeah, stuff like that's like way up the alt charts. It's like that's weird pop music for depressed people or something. And not all of it's terrible, but it's not what I consider that genre of music either.
I think there's, I probably explained this before, but I think there's a lot of bad songwriting out there.
Yeah.
Well, like a lot of what I think I like about 90s songwriting, look at something like Black Hole Sun. Like none of those lyrics really mean anything, but what they put in your imagination is amazing. Yeah, and the music is good.
And the music's good. Yeah, again, guys that can actually play musical instruments and compose songs. It's like, what a novel idea.
And I think like a lot of like alternative music in the 90s, like it just sparks your imagination. I find like a lot of music nowadays where it's just very literal and kind of boring.
You don't have to think to listen to this song. I'm gonna tell you what I say. I'm gonna mean what I say. You're gonna know what I mean. I get you. I see what you're saying. So yeah, music's dead. Print's dead. I mean, like novels and stuff. I haven't read a life-changing novel in about 5 years.
I don't know. I mean, like I said, there's still good stuff. I don't know. I can't tell you any life-changing novel I've read. I've just read a lot of good stuff.
Well, I mean, the stuff I consider life-changing was also probably like when I was a teenager, and like Hemingway and a lot of that stuff really changed my thinking. Tolkien grabbed my imagination, like all the big stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm still waiting for, like, shouldn't we have that like every 20 years, one of those? And it's like, no, we don't seem to have those anymore.
Well, would George R.R. Martin be like that for the new generation?
Well, maybe. I like those books, but I don't. Tolkien really grabs you like that, and it's recognized as the best in that genre too. It's hard to like say, well, why isn't there another Jesus Christ? You know, there's only one.
I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of epic tales out there, and it's hard to kind of recapture that when somebody already did fine the first time.
Yeah,
you're just gonna draw comparisons. And
George R.R. Martin is what I call like that genre of fantasy. I don't read a lot of fantasy anymore. I read a lot of sci-fi. but that's like what I call like dense fantasy. Right? And there's a few of those. The Rothfuss, that's like really dense universe with a lot of characters, a lot of stuff going on. It's you know it's
It seems like every character has a history that's not necessarily written.
yeah.
It's sort of like the Mad Max thing you were talking about. Like, you feel every character has a history behind them, even though if it's not directly explained.
Yeah. So there seems to be a lot of that, like, dense stuff. But then there seems like a lot of trickery, like, oh, we're going to have unreliable narrator, or we're going to change this and that. There seems to be, like, a lot of tricks. It's like the last season of Westworld. It's like, oh, you're just extrapolating the crazy shit you did the first season to the point where you're more concerned with fucking with the audience than telling a story. Now they would deny that, of course, but that's just what I got out of the last season of Westworld. But there seems to be a lot of that just in entertainment now. It's like, oh, you want to fuck with the audience as much as you want to, and you don't necessarily want to make the audience happy. You just want to screw with them. You don't want to. It's like the Star Wars, the latest Star Wars movie. That was like his thing, like his tagline. I'm going to subvert your expectations. Yes, you did, and not always in a good way, but it's not what I was expecting.
Yeah.
But see, like David Lynch can do that because you're totally expecting, like, I'm just going to walk into this with a completely open mind.
Well, and I think the thing with David Lynch is that there's no ultimate answer. It's like whatever you believe is correct.
Yeah, you have a role to play.
Whereas with Westworld, you feel like there's 5 wrong answers, and you didn't choose the correct one.
Yeah, there's like maybe a right answer, but Westworld has succumbed to what I call the smart kids in the room syndrome, where it's like we've gone beyond good storytelling into just like, well, we're going to prove we're smarter. Us and some people on the internet are going to figure out that we're way too smart for the rest of you. It's like, cool, enjoy your show. Fucking third or fourth season if you keep this up. Well, they will, but I mean, there's some good stuff in Westworld. It's not all. I'm not just shitting all over it, but it's
really high expectations and fairly low delivery.
Well, again,
or uneven delivery.
Yes. Like I said, they seemed more interested this year in playing games with the audience than telling a story.
Yeah.
And making things unnecessarily dense and impossible for you to guess at. It's like, I know there's some people that get really disappointed, like, oh, I had it figured out. And when you do it really dumb, that is frustrating. But when you get so so meta about it, it's like you're not even in the same. It's like you're not even dealing with the same group of people you're trying to entertain anymore. That's when it gets annoying. And maybe I'm totally wrong about that, but I don't think I am, because it's all based on how I feel. And I'm not some super literate genius, but I'm not a complete dumb fuck either. And I kind of know when I'm seeing something. It's like, you guys are just having fun. Let's get back to telling stories. Or not. Yeah, whatever you want to do. Whatever pays.
Yeah.
In the end, it's just about making money.
Well, I think they're going to make a 3rd season. I just wonder what that production cycle is going to be. Another 2 years.
2 years. And yeah, don't get me wrong. That's another thing. Like the extended Westworld production cycle. Like if they had just gone from season 1, season 2, everyone would have been like, awesome. Season 3. But when we wait 2.5 years and $160 million later or whatever it was, it's like, what? What the fuck are you doing? It's like, what time are we in? You know, I mean, that was like the hook in the first season, was like the Dolores stories were taking place 20 years or 30 years apart or something. And that was cool. That was well played. But then when you're doing that to the point you don't even know where the same characters, it's like, oh, are they in the same timeline? It's like, wait, did they interact? Like, what are we doing here? And then, oh, yeah, it's like, then we're so far into the future, it's at a time unknown. All right. You guys having fun?
We're at the end of the universe.
Yeah. Are we having fun yet? When's God gonna appear in that smoke cloud and tell us that it's all irrelevant?
Season 3 should just be should be Westworld Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
People sticking fish in their ears, fucking running around.
I need to finish that. I have a giant book that has all the Hitchhiker Guides to the Galaxy. I think I got to book 4.
Yeah,
It's the one where he can like learns to fly by just not hitting the ground. I can't remember how they describe it. It's like they describe flying as just of not hitting the ground.
like avoidance of impact. It's not really flying. It's just avoiding impact with the ground. Those books, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is pure fucking gold. I mean, really a great book. I'm trying to think if what was the last one he did? Like the Diner at the End of the Universe, or
Yeah, something like
I've read them all at some point. But yeah, the first one though was really. It's like, what is this schizophrenic story? This is great. And it's very cynical too. It's
Oh yeah, definitely dry
kind of-
British humor.
like just dry cynicism. Did they make a movie out of that?
Yeah.
And it wasn't very good, or
It was all right.
so I know it had the depressed robot.
Yeah.
I think I tried to watch it and I just
It had what's his name? Martin. You know, dude from The Hobbit.
Martin Freeman.
Yeah, Martin Freeman. Yeah, he was the main character, which I forget his name right now.
Or Prefect? No, that was the other guy.
That was the other guy. That was played by Mos Def. Was Ford Prefect.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But yeah, those are. Don't see any of those anymore. That's the thing. Like that's what I'm talking about. This transition between old and new, and maybe it is just me getting older. I don't know, but it seems like they try to do really original stuff for a while, and that doesn't work out because they're copying something else, and then they try to take a run at something really cool, and then it's like they're heading towards it, and they veer off at the last second. That seems to be if it's not completely original stuff like The Expanse anymore, which is for me is always on target or generally on target. If they're doing something else, where it's like we're going to make up our own thing, and I'm talking TVs and movies here now, it seems like they really run hard at big ideas and then kind of veer off at the last second.
Yeah.
Unnecessarily, just to be like, we fooled you. It's like, oh great, you're quite the fucking magician, considering you control how everything is presented.
Well, like, because everything needs to be made with like a planned series involved. Like you can't just make one movie and that's it. Like only one director gets to do that, and that's Jonathan Nolan.
Yeah,
or is it Christopher Nolan? Wait, which one? Yeah, it's Christopher Nolan. John's the brother. John's Westworld.
John's Westworld. Yeah, see, John Nolan and Christopher Nolan, it's like again, he's kind of taking a run at those big ideas. Like the first season of Westworld was like, oh, this is a weird kind of slow, like thoughtful story about the nature of artificial intelligence and right and wrong and what people are. And Westworld season 2 was like a weird 3-card Monty with the audience. It's, we fooled you. But yeah, good job. I'm glad you did that. I mean, I still sat down and watched it, and there was still stuff in it I enjoyed, but
like Christopher Nolan, like he did the Batman movies, but in between he did The Prestige, which is probably one of his best movies he's ever made. That's a fucking great out of nowhere movie, because you see a trailer for it, it's like, add some shit about magicians, who gives a shit? And then like Tesla gets involved and like all that kind of weirdness. It's like, this movie's fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's like, oh, is this about the craft and dedication of magicians of the the early 20th century, the late 19th century, and all this craftsmanship? And then it almost is like, no, there's real wizards. And his name's Tesla. And he still captures everyone's imagination.
I still haven't seen Dunkirk. I need to watch that.
It's kind of cool. It's an interesting missive on World War II. What's the other one what's the one that Grayson? Oh, that one with Oldman is really good about Churchill.
Oh yeah.
He's watched that like 10 times. Got a disc for him. Now, of course, he'll point out everything. It's like that didn't really happen that way. It's like, yeah, I know. They're just telling a story. Dunkirk, he kind of liked, but then in the end, he was sort of like, yeah, that was boring. What's he watching now? Oh, I ordered him a movie the other day. He came in and asked me for this movie. He's like, Dad, I can't find this movie anywhere. It's the 1970 Waterloo.
Huh.
It's a movie about the Napoleonic Wars.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find a U.S. copy, so I had to go like deep eBay for a region-free copy of Waterloo.
Weirdly, I heard one of the reasons why Stanley Kubrick made Barry Lyndon is because of that movie.
Oh, really?
He put all his research together to try to make a Napoleon movie, and then that came out. Or that came about. He's like, never mind. All right, it wasn't exactly like that, but at some point he got bored with what he was going to do with Napoleon, and they already made that movie. So he moved on.
Because it was a Russian production, but it's with English and American, or mainly English actors. But it was like the fighting scenes in that where they have these massive armies in formation. There was no fucking CG then. That was just like Russian army stuff in those uniforms, and people got hurt making that movie because they were staging cavalry charges, firing off cannons. And yeah, he was.
I bet they didn't have Hollywood horses, huh?
No. This was, like I said, because because the copy I got him just had a bunch of Russian writing on it. I said, is this the movie you want? Because you could find it on Amazon, but they want like $45 for it. So
yeah.
How deep are we going into Waterloo here, Chris? I'll happily buy you that, but I can find. But yeah, it's shot in English, but it's like a Russian production.
Yeah.
And yeah, because he was showing me the scenes, like he'd heard a lot about this movie. We went to YouTube. He's like, yeah, a bunch of guys got hurt here because they didn't time the propane charge right. So because it was like horsemen charging cannon fire, and it's like, oh yeah, that charge went off way too soon, and it like threw a bunch of guys off horses. They just kept going. It's like, go with that.
We're not resetting. This is too expensive.
Well, they couldn't, because these look like the Lord of the Rings battle scenes, but it's with actual fucking people.
Yeah.
Because there was one scene in there where he's saying, like, Grayson was telling me, yeah, see, the British started doing this when they'd put people in square formations, because horses will not charge through lines if the formation is square. They will immediately work around them. They will not charge through the lines. The British figured that out somehow. He said, yeah, that was a big tactic in the Napoleonic Wars. And it's like, so where do you learn all this shit? So you and the Napoleon Club get together on the football field and start talking like, where do you find this stuff out at? He's like, I just read about it. This is like his fifth. He has the book of the Napoleonic Wars.
Yeah.
Like, it's like an encyclopedia. Like, remember the huge old dictionaries that were like this big and that thick? Yeah, it was like $100 book. It's like, you better read this. Because this looks very dense, but yeah, it's all like marked up and got bookmarks in it and stuff. It's like, okay.
I mean, yeah, Napoleon stuff is super interesting, especially you think how he almost conquered the world in basically modern times, which seems almost impossible.
Yeah, Grayson knows a lot about that Third Republic and the Second Republic, and how all the political forces in France that worked to bring Napoleon to power, take him out of power, then bring him back, and yeah, he can tell you about all that stuff. I never, because he goes, yeah, that's the other world history that we don't study. we talk about, like, there was the Revolutionary War and then the Civil War. We don't talk about anything in the middle in the U.S. And he goes, yeah, there's a lot of wars that went on. There's a reason we don't have a Union Jack on our flag, and a lot of it has to do with Napoleon, because the British were too busy fighting him to come back over here. And well, they did in the War of 1812, but that was to basically stop us from taking over Cuba and Canada. We view that a little differently than the other countries, but essentially that's what what was going on at the time. So we saw a movie this week.
Yes.
Saw the 1975.
Sounds right.
Yep. Period piece. Barry Lyndon, which is based on a book I never read called The Luck of Barry Lyndon, which was written in the 1800s.
And this is probably like probably since like 2001 and beyond of his filmography that I haven't seen.
Yeah. Yeah, this 2001 tested your patience. This will absolutely drive you bonkers.
Well, I think the first half is kind of moves along. There's a lot of different story, but I think it actually moves along. It's the second half that's like kind of boring and not as interesting.
There's a lot of dueling and fighting in the first half, which makes it interesting, and it's a beautiful looking movie.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, it looks like you said, it looks like a painting.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it looks like all those old paintings we look at, but it does move at a slow pace.
Well, yeah, it jumps around a lot. You know, there's a slow pace to the movement, the camera movements and all that, and they're shit. What do I want to say? There's a narrator who isn't exactly helpful, but he's just like, we need to move a lot of shit around. Let's just have the narrator come in and say some things.
The narrator almost seemed to be lying at some points, and it was sort of a weird mix and match. It was funny, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny. I mean, I watched it. It took 2 sittings to watch it, and then there was some interesting. Most of the extra stuff they had on it, or well, I have it on DVD.
Oh yeah.
I cheated. I didn't do the website this week because I was like, well, why do you use that bandwidth when I have it here? And I remember this is the second time I've watched it. I think I watched it once before, and but yeah, it was there was a lot of interesting production stuff with this movie. Before we just talk about the story of the movie, we can just talk about the production. Because again, cool looking movie, shot in mostly natural light.
Yeah.
Which made for some very expensive filming. Because remember, back then, filming was film. Reels and reels of film.
And we're going to do 100 takes.
Yep, and we're going to do 1,000 takes. And we're going to shoot in natural light with high-speed film. Which, what did they...
Which is
all kinds of editing problems with this movie because of that, too.
Well, so the big thing is, like, it's using natural light, so it's either like natural light or it's candlelit, and even some of that is fudged a little bit because when they did candlelight scenes, they'd have like reflectors, like on the ceiling and stuff like that, to then like kind of get more light.
Oh, so the light emanation source was candles, but they were bouncing it around.
Yes.
A lot. Mirrors. Okay, that makes a little.
But a candle might as well have like no illumination whatsoever. That's why if you look closely, they'll even say like I think each candle has like 3 wicks on it just to make it brighter. It also makes it burn a lot faster.
There was a lot of fucking. There's a thing on YouTube. Some guy did like it's like the candle continuity of Barry Lyndon. Like because the candles almost like seem to.
Yeah.
Lot.
Yeah, so that scene where the German lady takes him in, like when he cut to her side they're bigger, when he cut back to his side they're smaller, and like they're like half the size in each scene.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you know the objective of a camera lens is to gather all the light in the area and focus it onto the film. So because you had very little light, he had to get like the biggest lens, whatever, like they made them for NASA.
Yeah.
For photography. Apparently they only made 5 of them in the world, and Kubrick had 3 of them on this movie. Because he was in talks with the manufacturer.
Right.
They also had to custom make the camera. Like, to custom make a fitting for the camera because I can't, for some reason, Stanley Kubrick wanted to use his own camera or something. Like he had an Arriflex camera that was like his personal camera or something like that.
Something like that.
And so he had to get a machinist to machine this whole thing together. Because they had to compress. Basically, they had to take the lens, and then they had to everything behind the lens. They had to shorten it as much as possible, so there'd be less length. There'd be less of a tunnel, basically, for the light to get through. So they had to like shorten everything on the back end with like the shutter and all that stuff, in order to get the best kind of lighting, or in order to utilize the lighting best.
Oh, okay.
You know, and do that like 3 more times.
Right.
Okay, because I watched the cinematography special
okay.
feature, and like the guy was, they explain all that, and like I like how everybody was just like, Stanley Kubrick works hard and he demands the same of you.
Yeah, that's.
And
oh yeah, this movie tied back to the moon landing conspiracies too.
how's that?
You were saying, I just looked.
Oh,
at
the NASA camera.
The lenses. These were the same lenses used to film the Apollo moon landings. So yeah, because remember Kubrick filmed those when they faked them all. That's what was that Room 237 documentary I watched?
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, it's weird. It's a lot of people looking way too deeply into something that didn't happen.
And so also because of how the light worked in this, it's hard to explain because even I don't know it. I vaguely was like, I know what you're talking about, but I don't. This is something like there's basically like no focus in the camera. There's no focus depth in the camera. So if anybody moved at all, like their face would be completely out of focus. So that's why a lot of shots are very still.
Yeah.
And like people like barely move because if they move, they get out of focus. I don't know. There is a dueling scene later on, but that's more outside and natural light. And some of the indoor scenes where they're using natural light from the outside, because they're actually using period appropriate housing, and that time that people would build houses to gather the light best.
Okay.
But also, they were shooting in the winter, so the days were shorter. So when they ran out of natural light, they would like have a thing to generate light that would look like natural light.
Okay.
Yeah. But it would shine into the windows, and you wouldn't know the difference. But so it wasn't all natural lighting, but it was looked exactly like natural light, or at least as close as they could get.
Yeah. And then I like all the fun they had with bombings. This was like the most violent period of IRA bombings.
Oh yeah, they were gonna film, but where were they gonna?
Well, they had to. They were shooting it in Ireland.
Yeah.
And then they're shooting in other places too, but mostly in Ireland because they still had a lot of those houses and everything looks old in Ireland. And they had like 14 bombings in a period of 2 months. It's like the most violent modern history of the IRA. And because in this, was it 74, 75, they had like all these bombings right in a row. And then they actually said they were going to kill Stanley Kubrick. It was like specifically, we're just going to kill this guy, draw attention or whatever. And so he had to leave the country.
Yeah.
And then he came back, and it was a lot of there were sets destroyed, things burned down. It was all kinds of. The movie was only $10 million though, but that was in '70s money.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah, there's one place like they shot because they didn't build a lot of sets. They shot in kind of historical locations. Like it's like they're basically museums.
Burned down then or something.
Yeah. So yeah, there's some So like there's some historical location that burnt down after they're done filming. So that scene is like the last sort of historical capturing of what that place looked like before it was ruined.
I wonder if it was all the multi-wick candles that burned it down.
No, because they weren't even filming there when it burnt down.
Oh, I know. I didn't think. Yeah, this was a movie fraught with all kinds of difficulty. Like, I mean,
Well, it
sadly-
wouldn't be a Stanley Kubrick movie if it was easy.
yeah, well, the external threats of terrorism and bombing, like that's yeah, the other terrorism is just Stanley Kubrick and how he treats his actors.
I'm gonna write a note to the pretty lady because I feel like I'll get a boner around her.
Yeah. Or write her a nasty note because her ass makes me aroused. It's her fault. But,
I don't know if that just kind of seemed like I inject.
It
He did write notes to her, but I was like, why is he afraid of her? I mean, they always say like Stanley Kubrick basically, has some sort of autism, but
yeah, Stanley Kubrick was autistic before it was cool. Definitely that. He also had like a IQ that was absolutely off the charts. So he wasn't really interpreting. He wasn't synthesizing reality the same way the rest of us are.
Well, that's why he had like so many arguments with the crew because he knows how to do everything. He knows what to expect out of professionals, and so he demands it. And it's not one of those things where it's like he doesn't have the knowledge, and so they can just bullshit around him. They can't bullshit around him because he knows everything they know.
Yeah, some of those directors, it's just like, oh, we can fuck with them. It's like, yeah, the camera won't work at that ratio. Oh yeah, it will. You just got to set it up this way, and that way. You know what the fuck you're doing? This is what I'm paying you for, you dumbass. It makes people feel good.
Oh fuck, we got to work this movie.
Lie to him. Stanley Kubrick never had union troubles on his movie that I've ever heard of.
Yeah,
a lot of people did, but he never did.
I don't know. I remember those.
It's up because of Labor Day this weekend. So.
Well, I remember like Sidney Lumet. I read his book, and like he talks like he was talking about like other directors and how they hate like union stuff like that because he always had to deal with Teamsters because Teamsters would drive all the cars and
Yeah, Ridley Scott always had trouble with.
Oh. But so what Sidney Lumet found, I was like, no, these people are professionals. They're supposed to do a job. Like you might not like you have to pay for it, but you can demand expertise from them. So if a guy fucks something up like parking cars or whatever, you get another guy. It's the Teamsters. They got another guy. You don't have to take the guy they give you. You can just get another guy.
Yep, they're just bidding those out of a local. It's like, as a fucking asshole, we got someone waiting. No, Ridley Scott always had a lot of, especially Blade Runner, one of the most fraught movie with union troubles ever, because he brought a British film crew to America to shoot an American-funded film with a British film crew, and they fucked his setup. One of the reasons Blade Runner looks so dark was the sets were continuously being sabotaged. But you don't do that. He was the only. Everyone told him, "It's like, you don't fucking do that. You want to do it? You want to shoot it with an English crew? Shoot it at Pinewood Studios." But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I just looked it up out of curiosity. So I always try to throw something in like that. But yeah, Stanley Kubrick never. I mean, those guys were probably getting huge overtime. They like love Stanley. So we're gonna be shooting 23 hours a day. Cool. Anything past 8's time and a half, I'm okay with that. But yeah. But this was I think would this be his least known movie?
I mean,
I've heard a lot of people. It's always acknowledged as like this was done after this, after that, after that. But like everyone has a shitload to say about Lolita and A Clockwork Orange and 2001, and it seems like this one sort of just gets passed over.
Yeah, if you think, like Paths of Glory, that got like nominated for Oscars and stuff like that.
Yeah, that one too. Yeah.
So if you take that one forward, not like all the like the Killers and Killer's Kiss or whatever those ones I'd never seen. I hadn't even seen Lolita. If you take Paths of Glory forward, when he's like a Oscar nominated director or whatever, Barry Lyndon I think is probably his like least known one, and also like that's never gonna get played on television.
No, it's too. How could you sell advertising?
Yeah, it's just too long. I mean, like I would never accidentally see this on TNT or something like that back in the '90s. Like that's not gonna happen. But fucking Full Metal Jacket all day. You might even find a weird edited version of a Clockwork Orange.
Yeah.
Or when Deep Cable got pretty ubiquitous, like it was just Stanley Kubrick all days on some of those channels. So. But even then, they wouldn't play Barry Lyndon. Like it was just Clockwork Orange and 2001 and The Shining all day.
Yeah. I think 2001 gets a lot of play. I always see that popping up.
Yeah.
Who's the guy? Who's the guy who started CNN?
Ted Turner.
Yeah, he loved that movie. Because when he was still running was it TNT or
Yeah, TNT and TBS.
used to run 2001 like constantly. It's like, oh, someone really loves this movie. But yeah, so this one is
So that that was why I was like wanting to watch it because I basically had no way to watch it before.
yeah.
Also, I don't have many Stanley Kubrick DVDs because they basically have no extras.
Yeah.
Because that Warner Brothers did that thing, but yeah, now this is a Criterion collection, so then I got a bunch of extras. So that was neat.
Blu-ray of this, it has some extra.
Does it? Okay, because there's that, like in the early 2000s, they came out with like the Stanley Kubrick collection because I think they're all Warner Brothers like owned. All his movies are, or at least most of them are. And they have like those, they're the paper box ones, but they're all white box, and like they have like the Stanley Kubrick set of DVDs, but all of them just have no extras. It's just here's, and like they're not even remastered. I don't think it's just here's the DVD.
Yeah, I have a couple of those. I have which one do I have? It's the Blu-ray. It's like the Masterpiece edition. It's got a bunch of his movies. I don't know, where's the box at?
But yeah, they might have different ones now because I just remember the white box, the white spine Stanley Kubrick collection.
I had some of the white boxes. Let's see. Yeah, the Blu-ray Master Collections. I got Lolita, Strangelove, 2001, Clockwork, Barry Lyndon, which is I watched, Shining, Full Metal Jacket, Eyes Wide Shut, and then there's like a DVD of extra stuff. I don't know. I know that cost me like $125 like 6 years ago or something, but it's like, fuck it, I gotta get that.
But I remember like the Doctor Strangelove DVD was pretty good. That had a lot of stuff on it because I think that was owned by a different company, so they put a lot of shit into it.
I believe so. Well, this was just more of a good Blu-ray transfer, though. So I guess there was an attempt at other Blu-ray transfers of his movies that they didn't. They just came out looking like big. They didn't come across as good, but this one they did a good job with it. So everything looks, like a Blu-ray should.
Well, that's the other thing. I watched the extra where they're talking about remixing the sound because it was recorded in mono, and like when they're bringing it to DVD, they got to do a 5.1, so they had to like go back and redo everything, get all the master tracks, and redo everything.
16 track recordings with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow, the way they used to do things. Very complicated. But a lot of people had jobs. There was like 5 guys. That was their whole job.
Oh, you had a whole laboratory just to make film.
Yeah. Well, now everything's just so. Like they were shooting a documentary at work. I don't know when it's going to come out. I didn't have to sign a release, so I'm taking that they're going to blur me out, or it's probably because I had a Carhartt shirt on, so I'll probably be in the background but blurred out. But yeah, these guys were in there with these cameras, and they had like all these production people. They had a bunch of safety people with them because we were just supposed to work. It's like they've said, if these guys get in your way, let us know because we want to watch you guys work. We don't want to like have you staring at the cameras or waiting for us. So of course they were constantly in my way. So they'd be filming something and I'd nail the horn. It's like, guys got to move because they said don't stop the line, and that's what our bosses were. They said, yeah, this line doesn't stop. I don't care what these people are doing. But anyway, they had like a couple guys with whiteboards that were illuminated.
Yeah.
And they had guys with boom mics because they were talking to different people, and they had these cameras that looked like something out of Star Trek. They like had giant window for the cameraman to see, video screen for the cameraman, video screen on the side, and then one on the top where the person being filmed could see themselves.
Yeah.
And they had some guy standing next to him with a computer doing shit to it, and it would make it like really dark or really bright. And I don't know what kind of camera it was, but it must have been something really expensive because it was harnessed to the guy. Like it didn't, it had like a, the arm.
Yeah.
It had an arm on it.
Oh, it was a Steadicam.
Yeah, well, it was something because everyone was doing a lot of shit around him. And then they had different cameras, and then they had the giant, like they look like still cameras, but they were filming with those too.
Oh, yeah.
Tripods, but they had huge lenses, like not long, but really thick. So I don't know what they were doing.
Oh, probably just wide angle lenses.
I was trying to talk to one of the guys, and then one of the safety pricks came up and was like, yeah, he can't be close to your forklift. It's like, it's turned off. Okay, everyone fuck off. That's when I started getting really bad with the horn. Like, get out of my way. If I can't talk to these guys that are doing something cool, it's going to be annoying. But that's going to come out on A&E channel?
Sure.
Yeah, something like that. It's called 100 Years of the Rouge. Because they were interviewing the guy I work with, Willie, the guy that's got like 65 years seniority. He's the oldest, most senior auto worker ever. Because he's like 85. He's been working there 65 years. I got my 20 years yesterday. They gave me my 20-year plaque. Well, this guy's been doing it 45 years longer than me. If that puts that into perspective.
He's been doing it as long as I've been alive.
Yeah, essentially 2 years longer than I've been alive. So, yeah, that was that. I don't know when the hell that's going to come out. But they got all kinds of pictures of Willie and interviewed Willie, and he enjoyed it. But of course, we were supposed to. I don't want to give away any trade secrets, but they said make sure you guys are following all the rules because this is gonna like go out. And we don't want OSHA to be like sitting there. Okay, they fucked that up. They fucked that up. We don't want guys doing headers down the aisle with like racks when you're only supposed to carry 2, which is shit that has happened. I've seen people do it. But I don't do that kind of stuff because I don't care. Like, what am I going to do so I can sit on my phone and text longer? What am I in a hurry for? Yeah. Anyway.
The story of Barry Lyndon.
Yeah, the story of Barry Lyndon. Take it away.
I got this sort of, well, because this is kind of like, a guy inserted in the middle of history. So the first kind of movie I remember that actually came out before this was called Little Big Man.
Okay.
With Dustin Hoffman. Where he's like, as a kid, he gets kidnapped by Indians and he's raised by Indians, and then he like ends up like serving like General Custer, and he's at Custer's last stand, and like he just gets very Forrest Gump like, where it's like one guy inserted in the middle of all the history. Or you think of like recently there's like Benjamin Button, or before that Real Big Fish, or not Real Big Fish, that's a band. Just Big Fish, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
The Tim Burton one, yeah.
Right.
So I kind of see that this movie is kind of like that, where it just follows this guy throughout his life, but he kind of ends up in these. Well, I wouldn't really say, guys. I really don't know this time period too. What was it? The war that was happening? The 7 Years' War.
Yeah.
Which I don't know anything about. I don't know why that started or what was going on. But the movie starts with Barry Lyndon's father. Actually, what's his real name? Barry, like Barryson or some shit like that.
Yeah, it changed.
Or it's not even like Barry, isn't it? It's like Bernard or something.
Well, it depends on who they are, because it's because someone called him Redmond.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
because I think that's like the city he's from or something.
Yeah,
because he's from Ireland.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's like, because like his name's not Barry Lyndon, and you're like, it's like, when does he become Barry Lyndon? It's like near the second half of the movie where that lady and like her last name's Lyndon is like, oh, this is where he takes the name Lyndon, huh? That would make sense. But it starts with his dad losing a duel and dying, and then he doesn't have a father.
Right.
His mom never remarries.
Yeah, she just she just becomes 100% like kind of, I don't know, like one of those crazy moms.
Spinster.
Yeah, like the crazy tiger mom, spinster. Won't marry anyone because her son's gonna carry on the legacy.
And then it cuts to, but it's supposed to be like I imagine it's supposed to be a teenager Barry, but he's fucking, he's like 30 years old, but he's playing cards with his cousin, and then she's like starts to make a pass at him during the card game, and then that's when he falls in love with her, essentially.
Yeah, it was some kind of weird.
She puts her what's the choker or whatever, that thing, necklace thing or whatever, cloth.
Yeah, the big necklace thing. Yeah,
but it was just cloth. It was just cloth that went around her neck.
What do you call those? Yeah, I've seen them. I know what you're talking about.
Say choker, you know what I mean? Except
not metal.
Yeah.
Not trying to teach a dog to heal.
Yeah, she shoves the cloth into her cleavage, and she's like, "Look on my body." He's like, "I can't find it." It's like, "Look anywhere." I can't find it. It's like, this is fucking weird. So I start this off.
This is sexy. Back in a time when people didn't bathe every day or month.
Then she's going to get married off to some British royalty because like he's gonna pay them like 1,500 shillings a month or something just to marry her or some shit like that.
Yeah.
And so that's when Barry decides he's gonna duel the British officer for his cousin.
Yeah. We'll fight you to the death over someone that's, we're all going to die of rickets in 7 years anyway. Let's fight to the death.
And so they go to the duel, and Barry wins.
Yes.
But he doesn't realize he actually lost. It's like, "God, I killed the guy." And they quickly like get him out of town and tell him like, "The police are on our trail. Like, we have to get you out of here because dueling's illegal." And so they send him to Ireland. Or no, they send him to Dublin or something like that, right?
Yeah, something like one of those lawless places back then.
Where he gets, some guys offer him food and beer, and then they rob him of all the money he has, takes his horse. But they leave him his shoes, that was the kindness they gave him, is they let him have his shoes.
Yeah, it was kind of a kindness from another age.
Yeah.
Take a man's shoes.
And then from there, because he doesn't have any money, he's broke, he decides to join I guess that'd be the British Army, right? Or whatever. There's kind of a weird thing here where like a lot of people with money like just like they gather up like a platoon or whatever, or a division of soldiers for the Queen.
Yeah.
It's like it's not like a whole like official military thing. It's like a weird ragtag like, oh, this lord has made an army for us.
That's like the army club. We're with this group. We back this team. We wear these silly uniforms and kill each other and kill everyone else. And yeah, it seemed a little chaotic. I guess if I was a student of the history of that time in Europe, it might make sense. But yeah, it was a little odd, whatever they were doing.
And then so Barry goes to war. I'm not really sure. They're like in Prussia or something, or not? They're like in Germany or France.
They're in Germany.
Yeah.
Because let's see, who are the combatants in the 7 Years' War? It's one of those stupid European wars where it just seems like, everyone just wants to kill each other, and I don't even understand. I'm not going to read a summation of this.
But yeah, it's a lot of polite walking into rifle fire.
Yeah.
Or musket fire, really.
A lot of formation fighting. It's like load your guns and fire at those people that are standing there. You have just as much chance of dying as if you get hit with one of these musket balls as you do if you get a cut on your finger. So, because everything's covered in horse shit in this world.
That's where when he joins up, he meets up with the guy who gave him the pistol in the duel, which is loaded with tallow, so it wouldn't kill the other guy.
Yeah, it's like animal fat. Slow the bullet down, I guess.
Yeah.
Or it can blow up in your hand. But
that's where like Barry finds out he's betrayed, and like his cousin married that guy anyways.
yeah.
And that guy tells him like he got like 100, quid or whatever for. I can't remember. I don't know the denominations. Just some weird Britishy
Pounds.
quids.
50 quid for her quim.
So that guy gets shot in this one battle that just kind of randomly comes up. And even the narrator says, like, some battle that happened that's lost to history, but Barry remembers. That's where... So that guy gets shot. He carries him away off to, like, a creek somewhere. And the guy asks him to kiss him, so he makes out with the guy before he dies.
Yeah, sometimes you need a good make-out session with another guy. Meet God.
Which I think that's the first scene I saw from Barry Lyndon, because I was watching like some best of list, and I think they came across that, and that's the scene they showed from Barry Lyndon. It's like, what the fuck's going on in this movie?
Some British stuff.
Well, yeah,
Stuff going on in this movie.
and after that, yeah, he decides war's not for him, but he's got a 6-year contract. He finds, so he's like carrying some water, and there's these messengers, like they're just prance around naked and declaring their love for each other in some body of water. And then Barry just decides all their shit's like on their horses, and he just takes all their shit and leaves. It's a messenger stuff, so he decides he's gonna fake his way. I'm not even sure where he's going.
I thought it was to Belgium.
Yeah, but he's trying to
Going to some country that's not involved in the 7 Years' War.
yeah.
Essentially, what do they call that? A coward or no? What do they call it when you run from the army? Deserter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, he's looking for like a neutral place to hide out.
That's when he meets the German, I don't know, handmaiden. I don't know, whatever. She's just some farm girl that's lonely. So he like gets food from her, has some sex, or it's not shown but implied.
Yeah.
He had his fill and then he left.
Some garter came loose and happened.
And then he runs. That's where he runs across the Prussian army, who I guess are allies with the British. And he's grilled by some captain, and then like he kept making up lies, like why he is where he is. And eventually, later on, when they have some meeting, they arrest Barry. He's like, you're lying, you're a deserter. And then they force him to be in the Prussian army.
Yeah.
Where then he spends like the next years or whatever just being beaten for being insolent or whatever.
Right.
And then they have some fight where some people are fighting outside, and then Barry's inside a house shooting at the other army.
Yeah.
And then the place starts to collapse, I think from cannon fire. And it catches fire, and the captain is crushed under some wood, and then Barry saves him. Mysterious. There's no reason for him to do that.
Yeah, he just didn't want to have a guy crushed to death.
Because this is the weird thing with the Barry characters, because at first you kind of want to think like, you want to root for him, because it's like he's been subject, he makes a lot of bad decisions, but he also been subject to things out of his control. So you kind of like, let's see him get better in life.
Yeah.
That doesn't really happen. Well, I mean, kind of happens. So the war's over. He gets awarded some medal, but they still like even when he's getting awarded the medal, like they're talking of his insolence and stuff like that. He's like, "You're a terrible example of a soldier, but here's your reward for being brave and saving my ass." And then they try to turn him into a spy. Who was the guy? The Chevier or no, that's the guy he demands satisfaction from. The guy he cheats.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because eventually he just becomes like a professional duelist and gambler.
Yeah, because the guy he meets is he's some sort of diplomat or ambassador, but I'm not sure for or from.
Yeah.
He's got one eye and a powdered wig and face.
Yeah.
And an eye patch. And and Barry helps him cheat. He breaks down and cries because like I guess he's been like hasn't spoken English for such a long time that he was in the presence of a guy who speaks English, and like he said, he broke down and cried and just told him everything that they wanted him to do, and then they conspired together to basically have everything work out in their benefit as he helps him gamble, and then he helps Barry get the fuck out of the country and away from the Prussians.
Yeah. Yeah, it seemed like a lot of things didn't make sense, or they were doing stuff where it's like, well, there seems to be an easy way out of this, but
yeah, and then it's when Barry becomes a professional duelist. Although they only show one scene where he's sword fighting. That's kind of like the and they talk about how he's like really good with a sword, and
yeah.
it was like some guy, because like basically, he helps is it like a count or something? I can't remember that guy. He helps the one-eyed guy cheat, and then when they like get all these guys like sign promissory notes, basically. It's like, yeah, we'll pay this money back. It's like, we don't need the money now to get them more into debt, and then eventually like they'll collect the debt and like end up in some sort of dueling sword fight, and then Barry always wins, and they will eventually pay out.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like all very preventable shit. It's like, well, let's not gamble. Let's not accrue debts we can't afford, and we won't have to fight people with swords and pistols.
And then we transition, and then he meets the whatever her name is, something Linden.
Yeah.
She's married at the time, but the guy she's married to eventually has a heart attack when he accosts Barry of his is like, you're trying to get with my wife, and I'm no cuckold, and then he like coughs himself to death, and then he marries her.
Yeah.
And takes her name. Mostly, and her son doesn't like him because, a little too self-aware for a kid that age. Is like, he's just marrying her. It's just a ruse. He's just marrying her for profit. It's like, no, kids don't talk like that. Stanley, you have a child. Kids don't talk like that.
Yeah, unless they grew up a little too fast.
And that's probably that's where you get into the second half of the movie, which is, I'd say, pretty boring.
Yeah,
because it's based about, because that's where like he gets even more despicable. Like, he marries this girl, he has a kid with her, and then he just starts fucking around all the time.
He basically whores around on his wife and gambles her money away.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one bad decision after another.
Right, and you think a guy who'd been like hit with horse whips and beat by the Prussian army would like, hey, and then have to fight people for a living, was like, hey, this isn't such a bad gig, but no.
So this is where you like, any kind of hope or you'd have for Barry, like, pretty much gets lost out. It's like, I read there's something like one of the reasons Stanley Kubrick wanted to do this is like, this is the book this is based on is one of the first books with like an anti-hero or something like that, or there's no real hero to the story.
That sounds like something Stanley Kubrick could know.
Yeah, so he has the kid. Lord Boddington, or what the fuck is his name? I can't remember. Her son, her first son.
Oh, the
Yeah.
stepson. Yeah.
Yeah, stepson. It's like, he ends up spanking him on several occasions to try to teach him not to stand up against him, and then eventually he leaves, but he swears one day he's going to come back and kill Barry.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because Barry's really abusive with the stepson.
Yeah, and he's very loving to his own son.
Yeah, but with the other son, he's not.
Yeah, he doesn't. With his own son, he just gives him anything, and that's why he gives him a horse, and the horse bucks and kills him.
Right.
So then, he just drinks himself into a stupor until Lord Boddington comes and demands satisfaction.
London man satisfaction.
Which I like that phrase for this. It just means, I want to kill a guy. Is that cool? Like, do you demand satisfaction?
Yes.
It seems like something like an upper class person would say. It that would be a complaint they would give in a whorehouse. I demand satisfaction. So this is probably the most interesting part of the second part of the movie is the duel.
Right.
And very weird scene. They're like in a fucking barn, and there's just doves flapping about like the whole fucking time.
Yeah, it's kind of it's an extended scene too. It seems to go on for a while.
So, but in this one, there's no trickery. It's like both people have pistols with bullets in it, and there's a coin toss, and Lord Boddington wins, and so he gets to shoot Barry first.
Yeah, that always seemed like a weirdly formal thing. It's like, wait, don't you guys like walk pace and turn and shoot? No. Turn
Well,
who first?
Yeah, there's different forms of dueling throughout the movie. Because I can't remember, like, his dad, the one with his dad, it's different. But the one he did with the British officer, it was like a guy, like, kind of like threw his hand, like, waved a flag. And, like, as soon as the flag was waved, both could shoot.
Right.
And that's how it worked there. But here, it's like, you elect to win, and you kind of stand narrowly, you present narrowly to your opponent. So you stand with your side, and they get to shoot at you. And if they miss, then you get to shoot at them. It's just a weird formality.
That seems like a bad idea. But
Yeah. So Lord Boddington he wins a toss and gets to shoot first, and basically as he's cocking the pistol, it fires, just like off away, and nobody gets hit. And then the British guy, the guy who's like conducting the duel, is like, well, if you have fired your pistol, it is now Barry's turn. And so he's like staring. He's just staring. He goes to vomit first because he knows he's gonna die. It's like this is Barry's forte. Like he's just gonna kill him. And that's when Barry, he's also nursing a hangover. Just fires it off on the ground.
right, weirdly.
Yeah, just try to give the kid hey, I've been in your position. I'm gonna give you a break, and then maybe you can turn your life around. And no, he still demands satisfaction. And then gets another shot, and then shoots Barry, and it hits Barry in the leg.
Yeah.
And then because it's bad medicine, they have to amputate the leg.
Right.
And then they pay him to never see his wife again. And then he becomes a bad gambler and lives a terrible life.
Which he was kind of doing anyway.
Yeah. It just kind of completes the circle. With his mom. Just lives a bad life with his mom.
Yeah.
Because I think that somewhere the narrator says at some point, life conspired to make Barry penniless and childless. Which that's what happens.
Yeah, and that's the happy end of the movie.
Yep.
And you have a weird funeral.
Was there a funeral?
Yeah, the horse-drawn, was that his funeral? I thought that was his funeral.
I thought it just ends on a weird freeze frame and then a quote at the end. I'm trying to remember.
Maybe you're right.
Because I remember he's getting into the the stagecoach or whatever, and he's on crutches, and then like that's the last you see of Barry, and then there's like that quote at the end, which I can't remember what it says.
You're right. Said I watched it in 2 viewings, and the second one was kind of fast.
Well, yeah, it was a 3-hour movie, so I started watching on Thursday. And then I think I got to the first half, and then I watched the second half.
Yeah.
It gives you an intermission, so you know when to take a break.
Bob smoke,
Yeah.
fire pistols at each other, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, so this movie got nominated for pretty much everything. This is kind of a strange. This is like a movie that you would like nominate for best special effects, but not notice like what any of it is. It's like, oh no, this is for camera, technical. Like that's. I don't think it was, but it won for costumes, which the costume, like the rumor I heard of the costume is that they were just stuff from a museum, so it was just accurate. So it's like they just got this stuff and then won an Oscar. But no, it was they did get period accurate stuff.
Right.
But then what it goes further is like she actually like anytime she had to make something, so like for all the army stuff, she took an actual army uniform and then recreated it, but she had to recreate it with the tools of the time.
Oh, I see. Okay. Using like a sewing machine or something.
Yeah, like
It was a pedal machine.
yeah. And then she's talking about like how a lot of modern materials, like they had to make it like look like a painting.
Right.
And so she's talking about how like the clothing had to be boiled and then dyed and then reboiled and dyed again.
Oh, okay. So it kind of dull it out a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just like, weird. It's like
Finished clothing.
boiling clothes to make them look period accurate. It's like, that's interesting. Well, actually, yeah, not necessarily make it look period accurate, making it look painting accurate.
Right.
So, there's a lot of interesting things done with zooms in this movie. Which
zoom away.
Yeah, it's like it was, and like I was watching this behind the scenes thing, and they're like talking about how it's not just like it'll start in close on something and it'll zoom out.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like each time it zooms out, it just reveals a different thing. And I guess because of how the lighting was and like a movement was tumultuous to the camera, like this is a way for them to like tell a lot of story without cutting.
Oh. Okay.
So it was like one camera set up, but it was like 8 different things being told at once. Because like one where it's like it starts at the table where they're setting up the dueling pistols, and then like it zooms out, and there's like more British soldiers, and then there's like a river in the background, and it's just like as it keeps zooming out, it reveals more things of the scene.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought that. Yeah, I did notice that. It's like, oh, that's interesting. It's like zooming away, or zooming out would be a more accurate term.
Yeah.
There seemed to be so much, like you said, like so much in motion as it. Because sometimes when you zoom out on something, it's usually like static. It's not like a picture book where more things pop up.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's a beautiful looking movie.
Yeah.
It looks great.
It's also boring and nobody's relatable, but hey.
Emotionless. Very emotionless people in this movie for a lot of it.
But
Barry Lyndon.
But yeah, I can see why nobody talks about it. It's also still a decent movie with some highly technical achievements that you wouldn't expect. Because it's like, it's just a period piece. Like, who gives a shit? It's like, no, you got to know there's a lot more to this than you think.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a cool movie, but yeah, not one that's like, it's not like Doctor Strangelove where it's like, oh, I'm gonna take this in.
Yeah, I've seen Doctor Strangelove almost like 20 times. Like, I'm never gonna watch Barry Lyndon ever again.
Looks cool. All it is something that looks cool.
Yeah.
It's like Blade Runner. It's like, this looks really cool. But it's not relatable.
But I also don't really like period dramas that much anyway, so this is there was a lot of things going against this when I went in to watch it, but it was still, it's still a decent movie, so.
Yeah, the one thing that killed it for me was just its pacing. And when we've watched like really weird foreign films and stuff on here, but that were challenging sometimes. But this one really, I guess, because it was a Stanley Kubrick movie, and I know that he did have weird things with pacing and like stuff in 2001 and all that. A lot of his movies have that slowness to it, but this was, because it wasn't a lot of cool shit happening. It was just a lot of beautiful, like you said, like paintings. Walking around, it was kind of tough to sit here and like, oh, okay.
But also kind of like I saw some similarities between this and Full Metal Jacket, where it's split between it's almost two different movies.
Yeah, that middle section, it changes when he goes to England.
Where it's like kind of all the excitement's in the first section and everything you remember, and then there's the last half. It's like, oh yeah, this has to happen, doesn't it?
Yeah, you gotta tell this story, you like it or not. But anyway, Barry Lyndon, check it out.
Complete it. I mean, if you haven't completed your Stanley Kubrick collection, or have seen every Stanley Kubrick movie, like watch it. Yeah.
I mean, it's not the worst thing you could do with your time.
No.
This is better than like.
This is 3 episodes of Ozark.
Yes. This is better than sitting around doing math or contemplating stealing siding from your neighbor's house. You can do more with your time than just those things. You could watch Barry Lyndon and maybe learn something or don't. I mean, the time period it's set in doesn't interest me at all either. So
Yeah.
that's one thing. I mean, there was really nothing in this movie that interested me other than the way it looked. And it's like, oh yeah, people live like this, and it wasn't even really. This isn't 1,000 years ago either. This is a lot sooner. So
I was trying to think, like, because he did The Shining after this, and I wonder if he took anything from this movie and brought it to that movie.
well, The Shining and this movie are very similar, and it was based on a book, and Stanley Kubrick changed everything about it. So in that, yes, in that sense, he did.
It's a Stanley Kubrick movie.
I read the book The Shining's based on. Haven't read this book. It was an interesting choice. I mean, I was wondering how he sold this to people. Like, I could see how you could sell 2001, A Clockwork Orange, or Doctor Strangelove. I could see how you would sell those movies. It's like this one, we're coming along right after. This was after 2001.
Yeah.
This was the follow-up. It's like, well, what are we doing, Stanley? Well,
Like I said, like, apparently he was working on a Napoleon movie, but then the Waterloo movie got made, or was working on. But then
was it you that were telling me, like, the way Stanley Kubrick's process was him and his wife would just sit around and read hundreds of books?
yes,
Until they found something. It's like they both agreed this could be interesting.
yes,
And it was only interesting to them in this case.
yeah, because that's how they came across The Shining. Because like they didn't hear about it, they just like came across this book. It's like, how about this? It's like, what the fuck is that? Because like Stephen King still wasn't really known back then, was he?
Not like he is now.
Yeah.
Or he was in them.
Well, I can't even think like what his first big was. Salem's Lot, was that his first big book?
I think so, yeah.
Or at least the first one that was kind of notable.
I believe so.
I'd have to look that up. His writography, or however the fuck you say that.
Biography.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. The fuck was I talking about? Oh. Yeah, why he chose this movie. Yeah, so he's working on some Napoleon thing, but and then he came across this, and I think, you know, he basically just lost interest as he found out multiple people were working on a Napoleon movie, and then, you know, funding like fell out for it. But he got funding for this. But one of the reasons the only reason he got funding for this is that Warner Brothers forced him to get a top 10 grossing actor for the movie.
Okay.
So it was basically
Guy from the Thornbirds. It's like, yeah, this guy's guy.
So yeah, this guy was in like the second or like the first highest grossing movie like a couple of years before this.
Right.
But it was also like it was down to him or Robert Redford, and I guess Robert Redford declined.
That'd be an interesting Barry Lyndon. Tall, handsome Barry Lyndon.
it was also like, Burt Reynolds or whatever. Like shit was all the top 10
They
grossing.
should've- Burt Reynolds.
Do Norm Macdonald's Burt Reynolds as Barry Lyndon.
So what? We're gonna shoot each other? Why is this guy dressed like a fag? Let's go over here. I like it that Burt Reynolds was supposed to be Han Solo and it didn't pan out. It's like,
Yeah.
amazing.
Well, yeah, I guess, yeah, like, that's what you demand. It's like top 10 grossing actors. It was like him and Nick Nolte. So, yeah, that's why you had to cast that guy. It wasn't necessarily his first choice, but, Robert Redford would still be an interesting choice, but I guess
Yeah, I could see Robert Redford doing it.
decline the nightmare of working with Stanley Kubrick.
Oh, Gene Hackman.
Well, I think, yeah, one of the reasons it was down to this guy and Robert Redford is because they were more age appropriate than everybody else was.
Oh, yeah. I could see. Just thinking of Gene Hackman from the French Connection bouncing into this. Punch this guy?
My sir, have you ever picked your feet in Poughkeepsie?
Yeah. What happened to Gene Hackman? He retire?
Yeah, he just retired.
Okay. I figured. I mean, he's got to be like in the 90s.
Yeah, he's like 90 something.
Still waiting for Sean Connery to do that last movie.
Yeah,
No.
I imagine there'll be. I haven't seen Sean Connery in a long time. As far as I know, he's kind of like has dementia or something like that, or not officially, but I've heard things that he's just basically he's like a living nurse in his home, and that's just the more you hear about it, the more sad it seems.
Yeah, it's sad. I don't know. It's terrible. Speaking of sad, you see the John McCain stuff?
Which one, or which stuff?
The funeral.
Yeah, I saw Obama's speech during
Yeah.
during one of my breaks at work.
Oh, okay. It's interesting how that his passing has captured America, and it really has, because it's like it just started popping up everywhere. Chat discussions and forums and things. I mean, some of it was just crazy conspiracy theory shit. It's like I think people secretly pine for a somewhat decent guy to. It's like, what's happened to our politics?
I saw the video where they almost dropped his casket.
Oh yeah, all in ways. Yeah, that would have been terrible. Or it would have led to if it had actually dropped. It would have led to a lot of these misses. Well, that's like what John would have wanted. Well, somehow I don't think he would have. Always like to make a spectacle. Yeah, that's. I don't think he wanted his body dropped. No, it's been a lot of coverage. I spent a lot of time in cars this weekend, so I was listening to a lot of coverage of the funeral.
Yeah, I was at work, when I went on work, it was on TV.
Yeah, okay.
It was kind of the section where everyone was giving speeches.
Yeah.
And then I saw some things on Reddit where George W. Bush was sneaking candy to Michelle Obama.
Probably.
Which that was weird.
I guess they get along.
Yeah.
I mean, all these people must get along. Well, I mean, George Bush and was it Bill Clinton and George Bush hang out?
Yeah.
I mean, well, they've got a bunch of shit in common, so I guess that makes sense. It was weird. There's two things. I mean, Trump, I understand why he wasn't invited, but it's like Sarah Palin didn't get invited too, which I get it, but still it's kind of like, oof. I mean, she did cost him a lot of votes, I think. Well, because the thing I liked about, John McCain, in his run in 2008 against Obama, you could see the beginning of the clusterfuck we're in today. because I don't know if you saw that thing I posted on Facebook from YouTube when that lady was talking at the McCain-Palin rally. Remember, she was like, I don't like Barack Obama. I don't trust him. He's an Arab. And John McCain just like, give me the fucking mic. Stop saying that, you know. And McCain said, no, he's not. He's an American. He's a good man. I just disagree with him on some fundamental things. You know, like he wasn't going to tolerate just the weird character assassination, the racist motivated character assassination at one of his rallies. But if you read the book Game Change, and there's a TV show they made about it too, but the book, it really describes, like, once they put Sarah Palin on the ticket, how the tone of the McCain-Palin, or once Palin was on the ticket and it became McCain-Palin, the tone of his rallies changed from people that wanted to talk about farm subsidies, the Iraq War, you know, things like that. Once they put Palin on the ticket, the real lunatics started coming out of the closet, and they were just saying overtly racist shit in the kind of the Q&A sections. And John McCain stopped that a few times. He's like, no, this is not, what are you saying? You can't talk like this. But you could see, like, in 2016, the origins of this coming out into the public sphere, where people thought, like, they were so sure about these opinions that they had, that it's like, of course we hate him because he's an Arab, or he has a funny sounding name, or he's black. Why wouldn't we? And the people running the campaign are like, Jesus Christ, what happened? And everyone, it's like, this is who people like Sarah Palin draw. Those are her people. And then that became Trump and everything else later. But you can really see a guy who was befuddled and, I mean, smart enough to know that kind of shit's out there, but really stunned when people would just say that shit on TV, on mic at a rally, and he's trying desperately to put that fire out. Like, stop what you're doing. This, or wanted to say there was crazy religious shit. There's a whole bunch of videos about the McCain-Palin rallies where you can see him just running around like the dam is starting to collapse, and he's trying to you know, slam corks in the little holes to stop it. And it's like, nope, they're coming, because you picked one of them, and now they're all going to come out like, he's with us. You know, he hates the blacks and the Middle Eastern people and the Mexicans and everyone else. We're going to go say this shit. But yeah, that's McCain was his candidacy inadvertently was the beginning of the end, because you could see him coming. I mean, it's then the Trump shit was just like, now they're just like full on fucking Nuremberg rallies. I mean, the only thing that's missing is people marching in a swastika formation or something. But in 2008, that was considered horrifying, including by the people running the campaign. It's like, no, we can't have this. 2016, they're encouraging it. They want more of it, because it keeps everyone's attention away from the fact that they're just like, no one with an income above $500,000 anymore is paying any discernible taxes. But it's like, oh, let's keep talking about the immigrants and whatever else. So yeah, McCain was one of those transitional candidates in our inadvertently, not him, but you know, that he found out very quickly as a what did they call him, the renegade or the maverick? Yes, the maverick. It's like, yeah, you can say you're a maverick all you want, but when you stand for national office on the Republican ticket and you put Sarah Palin or someone like her, and there's dozens of Republicans out there that are just like her, this is what's going to come to your rallies. And he seemed genuinely disturbed in the videos. Not just that it made for bad press, but that people would think, like, that's why I want to vote for you, because you're not black, is essentially what they were saying. And that seemed to bother him. It's like, oh, this isn't really the America of the 21st century. But I guess we were all wrong. Maybe it is. Or this is just some weird period before everything dies. I don't know. The death throes.
We just have too many cell phones.
Yeah, it's all these kids staring at their cell phones is the problem. Oh, you mean the fact they have no future and can't afford an education? No, it's the cell phones. Okay. Well, I'm glad.
Their home entertainment system, their stereo, and their porn machine is all their cell phone.
Yeah.
And they still won't call. They'll only text you.
I feel like people get annoyed by that. Oh, he only sends texts. Like, yeah, because he doesn't want to talk about the fucking weather. Text is like a post-it note for somebody. You never get a post-it note where it says, "Hey, how's it going?" Only a post-it note that says, "I need this, this, that, or do this, or here's the code to that, or whatever." Yeah, that's all it is. Is a text is just a post-it note, electronic.
Well,
It doesn't require a 30-minute conversation to get to the point.
well, yeah, well, like my phone, the reception on it kind of sucks, but texting's fine. You can't fuck that up.
Yeah.
Unless you just have no service. But also a text is referenceable.
Yeah.
So no, it's like something you can get across with one text rather than spending 15 minutes trying to retell something to somebody.
And texts are also evidence. He said I was a dickhead. He meant it. But, yeah. So anyway, Barry Lyndon, check it out. I'm done.
Goodbye, America.